Hello, everyone, and welcome to your COP Session 4 training, Planning to Respond to Students. As a reminder, the purpose of our community of practice is to come together as a community of educators with similar contexts to offer support and collaboration, to problem solve, anticipate the challenges of HQIM implementation, offer proactive support that anticipates struggles that we know take place with our that we've known take place with our prior CRIMSI pilot cohorts, and to allow all participants to engage in deliberate practice that can support them in responding to these challenges. Again, I'm going to try to make this short and sweet. Just make sure that you fill in or fill out that one question on the Google form, and make sure that you fill out the survey link so that you are eligible to receive your stipend. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into it. I want to remind everyone that the school year session 5 is live in TEA Learn. So please make sure that once again you complete your coursework along with this survey so that you are eligible for your stipend at the end of the program. Today, we will consider best practices when responding to root misconceptions. We will also take a look back at the work we've done this year and consider how we can use that learning going forward into year 2. Taking a look at our agenda today, what we want to do first is we want to identify root misconceptions and how we as teachers or educators can respond to them. We will then do some reflecting on how this can possibly look in the classroom. So, root misconceptions are core misunderstandings, concepts that students have not yet mastered that are leading to the errors we are seeing across student work. I want you to take some time now on your own to reflect on this question, on these two questions. What successes and what challenges have you had with identifying root misconceptions in your own classroom with your own students' work? What are some successes that you've had? And what are some challenges that you've had with identifying those misconceptions? In school year session 5, we reviewed the steps for determining misconceptions. Let's take a moment now to revisit the steps right here to your right, listed on the screen. So, step number 1, we want to make sure that we re-ground ourselves in this activity, in the activity that you are giving to your students. Some questions that you can ask yourself in order to help you do this are, what specifically do you want your students to do in this lesson? What skills are going to be assessed in this lesson? That means what TEKS are we trying to teach? And when were these skills previously taught? So do we need to reteach these in order for them to be successful in this new lesson? What do we need to do in order for them to master these skills? So that's step number 1, really reflecting on the actual activity. Number 2, I want you to consider the frequency. Okay, what are the kind of trends that you are seeing within your students' work? Are they being successful with this lesson? Or do you need to pull back because there are some challenges that they are facing? Okay, so what are some trends that you're seeing within the actual lesson? Step number 3, I want you to consider the context, okay? The contextual factors of the actual assignment. Did you give them enough time to complete the assignment? Maybe that clock was going and they would just rush through it. So there's going to be a lot of wrong answers, right? Did you have time to actually prepare yourself for the lesson? I think we've all been there, right? Where we just didn't have enough time to prepare this lesson successfully for our students. So maybe just doing a little bit more reflection on that. And then the content of it. What skills or are there any gaps in their actual knowledge that we need to reflect on to make sure that they are being successful with this lesson? So taking a look at steps 1 through 3, after you've looked at all of those steps, I want you to consider step number 4, which is actually naming the root misconception. Okay, putting all those reflections together and considerations to determine, okay, well, what is the actual root misconception? Why weren't my students successful on this? Or what were some challenges that my students actually had using that reflection guide? Now let's dive into sharing best practices for responding to those misconceptions. We're going to consider how we've used many of the tools and resources that we've already worked with this year to address them. We'll start by introducing a scenario, the scenarios you see here on the screen, and then we'll spend some time looking over our tools with the scenario in mind. Take a moment to read the Amplify lesson from grade level 3, unit 8, and then we'll come back together after about 2 minutes and discuss. I want you to think about what adjustments you would recommend to this teacher. What adjustments would you recommend this teacher make? I mean, we've all had this scenario, right, where our kids, especially with central idea and key details, where our kids just aren't understanding the actual skill of determining the central idea. Okay, so what would you recommend to this teacher? What resources does Amplify provide that help to make sure our students are successful? What supports could you offer them to make adjustments to their actual lesson? Okay, I want you to think about this. Let's cover our last topic, okay, reflecting and looking ahead. There's so much that we have done all year long, right, to accomplish just being successful with this Amplify program. Let's take a moment to remember the things that we've done and what we have learned. Then, over the next few slides, we will reflect on and share more deeply about our experience. So far this year and last year, if you piloted last year, we've dove really deep into our brand new HQMI implementation. We've also practiced internalization strategies for both units and lessons. I'm sure you guys are pros at this by now. We've used data to create action plans that responded to students' needs. So using that student work, using those domain assessments, and looked at that to come up with a plan to help our students. We've also deeply analyzed student work to determine action steps and root misconceptions. We've also internalized and used a variety of embedded supports to help our students learn. And we've done so much more, things that you have just done on your own from being a great teacher. I want you to take a look and take a moment to reflect. Which of the protocols had the greatest impact on your work this year and why? Which of the Amplify Texas ELP embedded resources have you used this year? And which ones had the greatest impact on your students' learning? The next thing I want you to reflect on is how do you plan to continue using these protocols and supports in the next school year? And the last reflection, I want you to think if you could give advice to your August 2022 self about this Amplify program and all the protocols that they offer, what would be the advice that you would give yourself? What would be something that you would want to tell yourself going into next year to consider? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I told you I was going to make this short and sweet, and that brings us to our COP session 4 to a close. Please make sure that you answer the Google form and fill out your survey using the correct link for your grade level. This is to ensure that you are given credit towards your stipend. Again, if you have any questions, you are more than welcome to ask your ELST, or you can email crimsey at tntp.org. Thanks for watching.